Welcome to BBB National Program's Beyond the Influence podcast, where we explore the world of influencer marketing and uncover the authentic stories behind your favorite celebrities and influencers. I'm your host, Tueré. Joining me today is Ty Young, former WNBA player and coach for the Chicago Sky, who is here to share her inspiring stories and passion for women's basketball and brand marketing. Let's get to it. Ty Young, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
So happy that you're here. So you had a really impressive WNBA career playing for the Atlanta Dream, Chicago Sky, Las Vegas Aces. When did you fall in love with basketball?
I fell in love with basketball at a young age, playing outside against my brother and my sister. And my brother used to always beat me. And so that's when I started finding like the competitive nature in me, because I would get so mad to the point where it's like, I got to get better so I could beat my brother. And then I played for the Girls Inc., Girls Incorporated, maybe around like 9, 10. That's when I started like just falling in love, always wanting to play basketball.
And so what are like some of your favorite memories from basketball?
My favorite was high school. I had the opportunity to play with my sister. She's 3 years older than me. College, it was just a different experience. The excitement, the sold out, crowd. And then professionally, the competition, the playoffs were always like extremely exciting.
And do you have like a favorite game, or like who was your toughest opponent?
So I've guarded a lot of great athletes over my career. Deanna Nolan, Cappie Pondexter, Diana Taurasi. But my most Tamika Catchings memorable moment was when I was playing for Chicago. Our rival was the Indiana Fever, and having to guard Tamika Catchings. And it was a close game where our coach drew up a play for our star player at the time. She went up for the shot. It rolled out, and I was like in perfect position. I got the rebound. I put it back in, and we forced overtime for that
nice.
game. When we ultimately end up winning.
Very nice.
So that definitely had to be it for playoffs.
Yeah, that's a nice thing. So you talked a lot about defense and guarding people and who your favorite players were to guard. When you're watching basketball today, do you feel like defense has the same place in the game that it once did?
No. I think now the game is expanding. The athletes are, getting faster, but now like the three ball has become even more intricate now. And when I was playing, it was 2 in, 3 out. We had post players that would dominate in the paint more, where now you have a lot of post players that are coming down shooting threes, which we call as the stretch four. So the numbers are getting higher. Once you want more points on the board, you want more excitement. I don't find a lot of players now that are wanting to lock in and like play defense. Now it's become a time, with social media, people are trying to get their highlight reels together, and it's more offense.
So how do you feel like the absence of defense in some of these games? Like, how do you feel like that affects the games? Because when I'm looking at, like, we're just coming off the Super Bowl, and a large part of the Eagles winning is that their defense, stood up. And they have the phrase, like, defense wins championships. So how do you feel by the fact that there aren't as many, like, defensive players? Or that defensive players don't really get the shine that they should?
You know, it's tough, even for me when I was playing. And in college, I wasn't a good defender because I didn't really want to be. I wanted to score. I would get notoriety for defense because I was getting steals. But, learning the game and knowing the game, steals doesn't equate to great defense. You have players that don't get the notoriety that they should as lockdown defenders, holding their opponent under their average. now, in the game, it's more so like the stats. Um, Defense does win championships, but you also got to score too. If there was more emphasis on defense, then there probably wouldn't be as high of a scoring as there is now. It seems now the game is teams trying to outscore each other instead of, blocking down and stopping an opponent, which is something that I feel comes from the inside, uh,
Like
playing
being
the
a
game.
dog, right?
Right, being a dog. And that's something you can't really teach. Being a dog is something that's within you. I was a scorer growing up, and then my role turned into being a defender. And for me, it's like, okay, well, if I can't shoot the ball 20 times a game, I'm stopping somebody that's shooting the ball 20 times a game. But it
Right.
was
So your
that
plus
dog.
minus,
Right,
right, is pretty high.
right. There are some players that, will play defense, but it's not many that's willing to be that dog.
And do you think that's just because, like, those who are sacrificing themselves and playing defense and being those lockdown defenders, like, aren't necessarily, like, getting, the notoriety that they should? Because the reality is, if you're someone that scores 40, 50 points and they keep you down to 10, like, that's the difference of the game,
Absolutely,
right?
absolutely. But like you say, it takes people who really know the game, who really watches the game and study the game to acknowledge those type of players. But when it comes down to stats, those players are not getting the notoriety that other players are. A player could be averaging 30 points and could be shooting the ball 40, 50 times to get 30 points, but they're not really looking at the efficiency as much as they're saying like, oh, this player had 35 points last night. So it is tough for kids now. Like I say, even with social media, they not getting that notoriety. Now you're getting like marketing deals and you're getting deals where it comes to, okay, like what are you doing to stand out? But those players are needed for a great team.
Right. And now that you've transitioned from playing to coaching, do you find yourself analyzing the game differently at all? Is your perspective the same, or has it changed or evolved?
I think as I grew, in the league, becoming a older player with the experience, you have a different mindset for the game. Definitely now as a coach, I'm watching the game differently because now I'm not out there playing. I'm having to teach players what they can do to be better, where they messed up at in the game. You having to remember not only to play at my position, but all the positions for all the players. You never know when they'll come ask questions. So it's definitely a different. It's a difference in what I'm paying attention to and what I'm giving back to the players. But it's also a blessing because I'm still doing something I love. And the bonus for me is I was once that player. And so I do have that experience. And as a coach, you not even as a coach, but as a person, you learn from experience. So there are gems that I learned that I feel I am able to give to players not only on the court, but also off the court.
Right. And so, what were some of the most significant lessons that you've learned from coaching with the Chicago Sky this past season?
Um, Learning that all players don't receive things the same way. There are certain things that can pump players up and tear them down. You can't teach and talk to every player the same. Um, and that's just something that's different that stands out to me as a coach and as a player. You know, Talking to my teammates is different how I would talk to players as a coach. And so that it's just little things like that that you have to take into consideration to get them to trust you to because you have to know what you're talking about for them to listen.
Mhm.
Because a player can tell when a coach is bullshit,
Right.
So it it was different in that aspect for sure.
So, I mean, there's definitely different coaching styles. Like some are yellers. I mean, you seem really nice. So I can't necessarily see you
Yeah,
screaming, but what's your coaching style?
definitely wasn't a yeller. And for me, this season was my first year coaching, and I was the third assistant. So I have the head coach ahead of me. I have two other assistant coaches ahead of me. So my role wasn't even to speak as much. I had to scout. I had to give my scouts, but I still never want to be like a yelling coach. If there was something that I saw with players, I would pull them to the side and give them those adjustments or give them the advice that I felt like they needed. I feel like there's a time and a place. I'm very passionate, but I don't feel like you have to yell. From as a player, I couldn't stand a coach that was just always yelling and like just nagging, because there comes a point where you're going to tune that coach out. Even a coach that talks all the time, players start tuning you out, you know? So it's like I'm straight to the point and I feel like I speak when it's needed.
Okay. And how did your well, I guess that kind of answers the next question, but maybe if you want to expand on it a little bit. But your experience playing within the WNBA, how did that influence your coaching style or your coaching approach? And are there any like unique perspectives that you brought to the sidelines, just, based on your previous experience?
Becoming a coach and being a player that I felt was in all calibers of being a starter, being a player that didn't play that much, being a player that can shoot and score, when I wanted, or being a player that didn't really touch the ball. Being a coach, I was able to relate to some of my players who maybe wasn't playing as much as they wanted to, or getting touches and opportunities to score as much as they wanted to. I felt like I was able to give them little gems that could help them, because I once was that player and I understand what it's like to be at that professional elite level and just wanting to play, just wanting to do more, or just feeling needed. I will always tell my players, keep your value up. And that doesn't mean you have to be the leading scorer. What can you do to help make this team successful? Or what can you do to separate yourself to stand out? And that was one of the reasons why I was willing to be a defender, because I knew that was something the team needed. And it's also something that a lot of people don't want to do. And that's what kept me with the job to last 12 years in the league, when during my time, the average year of a WNBA player was 3 to 4 years.
Mm. And so, outside of like basketball, what are your other interests or endeavors or projects that you're working on?
Um, Building my brand more. I have a clothing brand, which this hoodie is from TY1 Gear.
Oh, nice.
I'm working on a hair growth oil. Just entrepreneurship, because like when I retired in 2021, I didn't really know what was next. But because I was building my brand as an athlete, I was able to still have success, in my life, in my career doing that. Sometimes I feel like because we are athletes, people try to keep you in a box and be like, oh, just be an athlete and that's it.
Shut up and dribble.
Yeah, basketball isn't forever. Nothing is really forever. So you have to make the most of the opportunities that you have. And I think for me, I've always been authentic and I've always did what was true to myself and focused on the endeavors that was in front of me. And if it aligned with me, and it made sense, then I was going for it.
And where can people find your brands?
My clothing brand is www.ty1gear.com. And my hair growth oil, it will be up. I'm still, doing some finishing touches to it, but I haven't released the name of it yet.
Okay.
So
we're looking out for that.
Yes.
All right. So being that you brought up brands, are there any, like, in a perfect world, are there any brands or companies that you're like, oh, I would love to work with them?
I've done work with a lot of brands. One brand that I've always wanted to model for was a clothing brand, Gap.
Okay.
I've been wearing Gap since I was a kid, and I've seen them do collabs with different people like Kanye. I've seen Future model their stuff before, Matt Kemp, athletes. And I've always, wanted to be like a brand ambassador or be like a model for that brand.
Well, hopefully Gap is listening. So Gap, if you're listening, Ty Young wants to be a part of your brand ambassador. So.
Or at least toothpaste brand,
right.
Colgate, Crest, Sensodyne. Thank you. I get the compliment from people about like having a smile, and I'm just like, why I can't get like a toothpaste?
But you do. You have nice teeth.
Thank
you have
you.
a nice smile.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Okay, Colgate.
Colgate, Crest, Sensodyne. But yeah, beauty. I'm doing my own hair care, but brands that I feel like align with me. I never want to do something, or I never will do something that I feel like isn't authentic to myself. I've never been a person that was to be fake, and I don't believe in having a partnership or being an ambassador for something that I don't truly stand for.
No, I understand that. And, Super Bowl obviously is really big for, Super Bowl ads and which ads you see at the Super Bowl. And one of them that I was really impressed with was the Nike ad. And I thought that it was such an inspiring commercial, featuring Olympians, featuring WNBA players, collegiate athletes. And the messaging from that commercial to me was like very impactful, right? Because it was highlighting like some of the disparities that women face in sports, and then also simultaneously telling them, despite all of that, still go out there and win. And, I know as someone that played at your level, like that had to be your mindset from day one, right? Because you don't get to where you are without being a dog and without competing at that level. And notably, in women's basketball has undergone like some remarkable changes, and I'm really happy to see that. I have a daughter that plays basketball. She's in high school and she plays high school basketball, and it's something that's really important to her. She has a couple of offers, and she's trying to get to the next level and, trying to do some of the things that you're doing. So it's really inspiring to see like going from the WNBA, or not, there not even being a WNBA, to where, you guys are today. So as someone with a growing platform and influence, like how do you envision using your voice to continue that momentum and continue to push the WNBA forward and women's basketball forward?
For one, for the support. For two, just being in my purpose. It's funny you say that because I was just speaking to my manager not too long ago about doing camps for girls and clinics. I just did a kids clinic. It was co-ed not too long ago. I did it for free, a give back, because we are role models, whether you want to be or not. Kids look up to you. They want to make it to that next level, in which I was that kid one time, and I didn't have the opportunity to be around someone who actually like played in the W, someone who actually played in college, someone who actually made it to that level. So doing that with the give backs and the camps and the clinics and like speaking to kids, speaking to schools, pushing it, I feel like that's something that also still elevates it. Like you said, the notoriety now that women's basketball is getting, it's like continue to push that wave, continue to give that love and show that love to the kids, because they are the future. They are what's next.
Right. No, and it's true. And really like getting to a point where everyone sees that. Like if you have a place in a room, making sure your voice is heard and making sure you're telling other people that. So I worked for a retail company, and I remember being in the room, like I was in the room as an attorney, but I was an attorney for advertising and marketing and events. And I remember telling them, I think that you should get behind, the WNBA and doing some of this stuff with the WNBA. And this was like literally right before this massive, growth. And they, said to me, no one cares about women's basketball. And how wrong, right? They were, the people that said that, because literally that year it exploded.
Yeah.
And we could have been a part of that, but I still think it's important to just still have a seat at the table and voice your opinion and, let people know what's happening, because the more people share, the more people enlighten people, you do eventually get change.
Right.
And then shortly after, they did start focusing on, women's basketball, but maybe a little late.
Yeah,
late
unfortunately,
to the game,
we live in a world where things are trendy. A lot of people don't like to be the first to do something, to trust in something, or to believe in something. People want instant gratification. And now, things we've been things we've been asking for. Even with the W, like doing more marketing is now becoming a thing, but it takes time to grow, but some people, they think about money first, but to make money, you have to invest. You have to spend money to make money. And a lot of people are not willing to do that.
Or sometimes you just have to take a risk,
Right.
right? Like sometimes it's not even about like you have to understand, like, because some people are doers, some people are visionaries, and I think sometimes, like, if you trust in a visionary, like
Right.
sometimes you have to take that risk and see if it works,
Right.
because it might work, and if it works, like, you were the first to do it,
Right.
right? So you're getting the benefit of this new thing happening before everyone else, because once everyone else is doing it, you're paying a premium for it,
Trendy.
right?
But that's why, it's when I said, like, people are afraid to be the first to try something or to do something. It's like you have to go out on a limb and do it.
Right.
If it's something, like you want or you believe in, like, I feel like you have to just do it.
No, it's true. And how do you ensure, so like when you're doing brand partnerships, like how do you ensure that like your personal values and the brand partnership align?
Um, research on the brand. A lot of things for me is with my discernment, and I would research and I would look things up, if I'm unsure. But for the most part, it's my discernment and what I see. If I feel like it doesn't align with me, or if I can't be myself, if I can't be authentic, then I'm not doing it. I would say something so small as, like, you see people doing credit reports, right? And I've had people contact me, because of my following. They want the shout out, oh, I'll pay you to do this. I don't know what you do for credit reports. I'm not going to just accept, money to shout you out and have people coming to you to do that when I have no idea. Like, it doesn't align with me, and I'm not being authentic when it comes to that. And it's the same with brand partnerships. Like, if, say it's a company that's doing dresses. I don't wear dresses. So that's not something that's authentic to me to, like,
Right.
say, hey, I'm wearing this dress, go buy this dress, So if it doesn't align with me and it doesn't align with who I am, I'm not doing it.
No, and that makes sense. And I agree with you 100%. Like I remember there was a time that I used to represent athletes and I represented them in a lot of different capacities. And during that time, one of the biggest things, like I remember that there was a lockout in the NFL. And so it didn't really impact the bigger players as much, but some of, the rookies or, players that weren't as known, there were companies that would come to me because they knew I had access to these players. And they were like, oh, can you introduce us or can you help us do a deal, to do these loans with these players? And I was like, absolutely not.
Yeah.
like I'll help them figure out a way to get money or do brand partnerships or do something else that'll get them money to get them through, but not going to put them in a situation where now they owe a
Yeah.
whole lot of money to someone else. Like, one, I didn't believe in it. Two, I was like, they're my friends,
Yeah.
right? Because when you work with people and you have a real relationship, like you want to be
You
good
want
to the
what's best for
people,
them
right?
too. Yeah.
And I think, and even with that, like, what's your experience on the business side with, working with professionals through some of these brand partnerships?
It's tough, because with that, you have to have trust. You have to, like you're talking about, know or feel that you have someone that is going to represent you in the right way, that's going to work hard for you. It's like you are a team. You're in this grind together. They're not snaking you. And I went through some changes at one point where I had to, like, switch the people that I was working with, because things was happening that I didn't like. And, it's hard, but like I say, I have to use my discernment. I have to pray that, it's the right situation, it's the right person, because even with, having an accountant, like, people steal, people lie. And sometimes as, athletes, we can get caught up and not pay attention to, like, the small things until it's too late. So for the most part, I just use my discernment and hope that the people are good.
And with the expansion of NIL, right? Because now, like, I know when you were probably playing, that wasn't a thing.
At all. I
So,
wish.
but now it is. So, what advice would you give to, because we're talking about high school athletes, college athletes, like, what advice would you give to them regarding, safeguarding themselves in, navigating this whole NIL process?
You know, that's tough. I feel like that's something that they have to go through with their parents. Those are the ones that's with them, but even then it gets tricky because, some families are in need of more things than others, and is it for the right reason? Does it align with you? Is it good for you? So that's like a tough situation to discuss and have hands in on. But for older players, like college is it's almost like what is it worth to you? Like how does that align with you? How do you feel with that? Because I don't have that NIL experience, when I was in college. Of course I wish I did, but if I was a kid during that time with that opportunity, I probably would have negotiated it with my parents.
So even that, it supposes that a kid's parent is capable of navigating that world themselves. So in that regard, how would you because what if their parent is not capable of, reading or understanding a
Yeah.
collective agreement?
Yeah.
Like, how do they navigate that? And the framework is relatively loose where it's not necessarily like you need an agent or you have to have an attorney or these things, or maybe you can't afford one, right? Who
Yeah.
knows? But so how do you think that there are ways that, kids can work around that, or even like, are there policy shifts that should be made to address some of those concerns?
I do think there should be, a shift. And also now with that becoming a thing, I feel like there should be a class taught so kids can learn because we wasn't even having an opportunity close to getting that type of money, at that age. And for some people like that do struggle, but their kid is a great athlete, you see that and you get excited and you're ready to sign and don't know what you're signing. So I do feel like they could start offering classes for that if they haven't already. I know certain schools do have like financial literacy, but I just feel like it's something that now is becoming very popular that you do need to learn
Or
because
even maybe like seminars or
right,
workshops or
right.
things like that.
But how many kids are actually going to go to a seminar unless they bring it to the school,
Right.
So
Right.
that would be a
So it would
thing
have to be
too.
the school
Yeah.
doing it. Okay, so that makes sense. So what advice would you give any current athletes that are navigating the world of brand partnerships and endorsements?
Um, I would tell them to stay true to themselves, if it doesn't align with them and if they feel like they can't be authentically themselves, then maybe it's not for them. Like I can't tell someone what is for them. I feel like you should know. But false advertising is false advertising. So like if you want to advertise something just for the money, I don't know how that will stand in the long run. So I would just say like be true to yourself and what you can be yourself authentically it.
Well, it was great having you today, and I thank you for your time. It's really been amazing. Is there anything else you want to leave with our viewers?
Thanks for having me and no, not really. Just I'm big on just being authentic and being true to yourself. Being a good person. So that's it. Be a
No,
good
and
person, but don't waste time trying to prove it.
No, and that's great advice. I think that in this world you go a far away by just really being true to yourself and true to your convictions.
Absolutely.
And so you want to know that the people that you're doing business with, that they're being honest, that they're
Right.
being truthful, that what they say means something. And you want to know that about the brands too, right?
Right.
Like, you also don't want a brand that's just putting their name on everyone,
Right.
right? You want them to like pick and say, okay, this makes sense, and then this makes sense because we have similar goals, we have similar values. So I think
That
all of that,
align.
yeah, I think
Right.
all of that really matters. And that's part of, so our company, BBB National Programs, that's also something that we do, right? So we make sure and we promote truthfulness and transparency in advertising. We help companies make sure that their ads aren't deceptive.
Yeah.
That if they're saying, okay, this product does X, Y, and Z, that it
does
really
that.
does
Yeah.
X, Y,
Right.
and Z.
Exactly.
Right. You're talking about starting, a hair growth
Right.
product. We want to make sure that your
Well,
product...
I've already started it.
Oh, yeah,
I'm
yeah.
just
So you start...
like
launching
getting the
it.
smells and getting everything like down to a T. Because I
Yeah.
cut all my hair off like 2 years ago.
Oh, wow.
And so it has grown fast. So yeah.
Yeah, so making sure that products like that, right? That if they say, okay, your hair is gonna grow, that it's really gonna do
grow,
that,
right.
Like so those are the things that we make sure companies do, and we help them through a self-regulatory process. So it's more so we work with them to make sure that their advertisements are truthful
That
and
everything is
transparent.
aligning.
Right.
Right. For sure.
And a lot of companies, they value that also. So they work with us in making sure that they're sending out that message.
Yeah. I love that.
And that's a wrap on today's episode of Beyond the Influence. Thanks for joining the conversation as we explore the world of influencer marketing. Until next time, stay authentic and keep it real.